In the previous video of the Restoration Age, we talked about satire. However, right here we are going to talk about the development of satire from the ancient Egypt to the Restoration Age. So, the literature of the ancient Egypt is as rich and varied as any other culture. One of the earliest examples of what might be called satire is the satire of the trades. So you must remember it that the satire of the trade is one of the earliest examples of satire. It is an Egyptian writing from the beginning of the second millennium BC. So the satire of the trades, also called the Instruction of Kheti. Kheti's instruction to his son Pipi is a didactic work of ancient Egyptian literature. And you can see that in this particular work, he's basically persuading his son about writing and studies. And in this satirical work, the satire of the trades, it basically discusses general matters of life and moral principles in the form of short sayings and warnings. So the entire story moves around a father and his son. And a father basically seeks to encourage his son to become a scribe, to become a writer during their journey from their home to the royal residence. And his father extols the virtue of the scribal profession, the writing profession, whilst disparaging other trades, including brick making, carpentry, weapon making, farming, and others. This composition contrasts the hardship of the manual professions, all the professions that are carpentry, weapon making, farming, and he's basically describing the living standard of the scribe, of the writing man. Following are some of the translations of the satire of the trades that come from William Simpson's work. So this is one of the translations. You can see that when Kiris discusses different professions to his son, then finally he says to his son, "But if you understand writings, then it will be better for you than the professions which I have set before you." Further, his father says, "Be serious and great as to your worth. Do not speak secret matters. For he who hides his innermost thoughts is one who makes a shield for himself. Do not utter thoughtless words when you sit down with an angry man." And lastly, he says, "See, I have placed you on the path of God. The fate of a man is on his shoulder on the day he is born." Although the entire composition may not have been intended as satire, many of the descriptions of the other professions clearly have satirical and exaggerated elements. The last third of the text becomes more like traditional instructional literature with general advice. So, according to scholars such as Hilk, that the context was meant to be serious. So, this particular satire exalts the career of a scribe, while remarking on the drudgery experienced in other professions. Such an outstanding literature and the earliest example of satire. Laborers are described in the document as having tired arm and to be living in subpar conditions. This poor standard of living is juxtaposed with the life of a scribe, whose job is greater than any other profession. This document survives on the papyrus Sylier and the papyrus Anastasi. The manuscripts are complete but damaged enough to allow for a number of different interpretations and translations of certain lines. This papyrus is important to historians and Bible scholars, above all for the information it supplies. So far you learned the earliest example of satire, that is the satire of the trades of the ancient Egypt. Let's talk about ancient Greece. So the Greeks had no words for what later would be called satire, although the terms cynicism and parody were used. Modern critics call the Greek playwright Aristophanes one of the best known early satirists. His plays are known for their critical political and societal commentary, particularly for the political satire by which he criticizes the powerful Cleon, as in The Knights. He is also notable for the persecution he underwent. Aristophanes' plays turned upon images of filth and disease, and you'd see that his style was adopted by Greek dramatist comedian Menander. His early play, Drunkenness, contains an attack on the politician, Calimedon. And the oldest form of satire still in use is the Menippean satire. The oldest form of satire still in use. Menippean satire by Menippus of Gadara. His own writings are lost, but examples from his admirers and imitators mix seriousness and mockery in dialogues. So it's a mixture of both seriousness and mockery in dialogues when we talk about Menippean satires. As in case of Aristophanes' plays, Menippean satires turned upon images of filth and disease. In the upcoming lecture, we will talk about satire in ancient China and we'll proceed towards the Restoration Age.